So guitar was the first instrument I ever learned, but once I got into beat making and more specifically samplers, I stopped thinking about guitar as an instrument and more as source material, something to chop and transform into a completely different sound. So check this out. Every sound in this beat, other than the drums, was made using a guitar, either one-shots or just chopping and repitching a loop. So today we're gonna build a track using just a guitar and a sampler and seeing how far we can take a single idea. Let's get into it. So the first thing we need to do is actually move some guitar into the sampler. Now, some samplers like the SP404 and the MPC sample have a built-in amp sim, so I'm going to use that. I've got a little extra drive, but a little bit of crispiness from the gain and stuff, it can always kind of help, especially when we start reversing and chopping and things like that. So next up, we're just going to find a spot to sample in. Now this could work just as is. We could loop this and just play on top of it. And that's totally cool, but that's the beginning of what a sampler can do. So what we can do is so much more. So we're gonna do some other things to it. First off, we could add additional effects if we wanted to, but instead of that, let's chop it. So if we go here and we go into chop, I'm just gonna do auto mark, and we'll do a time division of 4. Time division of 8 could be really cool, but I think we'll just do 4 because I wanna chop those arpeggios into separate chops. So if we just do that, now check this out. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to assign to pad, and we'll just do these 4. So we've got that. Let's put those in a mute group so that they don't just continuously play whenever we trigger. I want them to all cut each other off or choke whenever we trigger the next one. So we can do that on here by hitting Shift 8, and we'll go to a new one, and we'll just put those in. We'll even throw the main one in just in case. So now one of my favorite parts about a sampler, for guitars especially, but any sample, is we can change the pitch. We could drop the pitch, or up it. And they don't all have to be the same pitch. We could really mess around with it. But for this, we'll keep it simple. So that's cool as is. Because samplers are meant to just kind of explore and experiment, we can get a little more creative. What if we reverse all of these? Now we have some little scratchiness or sliding at the start of some of these, so we're just going to change the endpoints a little bit. And then to clean up the pops that we were talking about, we're going to go to the attack and decay, and we'll add a little attack and release, because release, when you flip it, when you reverse it on the SP, release becomes your attack. So there's a couple little riffs I can already hear, and we only have these 3 notes. All minor 7th chords, which is kind of an interesting chord progression, but it does seem to work. So before we do some drum programming and stuff, we can also get bass from this. Now I do have this tuned to a baritone, so it is in B standard, but even so, we still need a bassier tone. We could use a sound generator from inside, but I want to use as much as we can from the guitar. So what I'm going to do is actually use an effect called downer on here. Hear that? There's a couple different settings on this. The lower you go in the rate, the kind of longer sustain before it starts almost sounding like an arpeggiated sound, but it also means more latency. This downer has a ton. Now we could also just record the sound in and drop the octave. That totally works too. I just find the downer adds a little something extra with like the artifacting, so we're gonna do that. So I'm just going to find a good bass tone. That could work. Hear that very sharp? But there's a lot of latency. Listen between when I hit it, probably the mic picking up the guitar and the latency on it. But let's record that in. Actually, one more other thing we're gonna do, add some warm saturator on this. Really boost the low end. I'm gonna record 2 different sounds because I want one that's kind of sustained and one that's short. We'll do the short one first. That was terrible. That should work. And then let's get a sustained one. We'll change downer a little bit. We'll do that half. That'll give us a nice long bass note to build off of. So let's put on warm saturator again. Let's drop the drive a little bit. Take off a little bit of the high. There's a good bass. That'll work. So let's put that on. Here we go. But now we've got just a plain bass note. And if we go into chromatic mode, we've got a bass line. So from there, I'm gonna put the guitar down and we're going to do some pattern sequencing, and then we may do some additional guitars. So usually with samplers, I like to lay down some drums first, but I think with this one, since we've got such an interesting guitar sound, kind of want that to define the song we're gonna build rather than have drums and make the sample fit the drums. I wanna have the sample and then have the drums fit the sample. We're gonna go to, let's say, like 92 BPM, and I'm gonna up the quantize, but I'm gonna set it to 1/8 notes. And let's try something. It's a little dry, it needs a little something. We can resample, but for now, just gonna turn on Kodama, which usually really cleans up. Oh yeah. Now if we were to add some reverb to it too, okay, we're definitely gonna have to resample that because I really like that. We're getting way ahead of ourselves. Let's get back. Now that we've got that original sound, you can hear the potential where it's gonna go, but we'll just keep the Kodama only on for right now because we're gonna do some drums. Now for this, I'm actually gonna lower the quantized strength and set it to 16th notes. So I want the drums to be a little wonkier. I wanna try a kind of different drum sound to that. So I'm gonna make a copy of this kick. And normally if this had per pad filters, I would drop the filter too, but we're just gonna make a really quiet kick. And all of these drums are from my new sample pack memory signals. There's all kinds of melodic loops, and drum one-shots. I designed all these drums using FM synthesis and acoustic sounds, just sampling random sounds and combining them. So if you like those kind of warped VHS or cassette sounds, this sample pack's full of them. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. Now let's get that bass line in. Let's see if we can find the bass note or the scale that we're in. We were in, let's see, that was A, but we went up 4. So if we go to here, so we went from A to C sharp, D sharp, F, which it could be the flats, doesn't really matter. But if we transpose it, that's where we went to. Basically what I'm trying to do is make the sample I made fit in pitch. Now let's see if we can make that bass work. Let's drop the volume of that bass. I know I always record it in really loud and then I gotta take it down later. Now we can just add some leads. You know what, actually, let's do something really weird and just get some crazy guitar sound with effects and resampling and all that, and see if we can make something like a synth lead out of it or something. So I'm gonna turn on external source and I'm gonna actually take off the amp sim and put on Juno chorus. And then we're gonna go in, let's do Kodama because I like it bouncing around, and then we'll take maybe for bus, I'm just thinking for bus 2, there's all kinds of effects. Well, let's start with SX reverb and we'll go from there. And let's see what we get with that. I'm gonna grab the guitar. And for the purposes of simplicity, I'm gonna try and record like a C note. Let's go into bus 3 and 4 and get something really strange. What about this? That's interesting. That's something. I like that. Let's get that one in and we're gonna do the other one too, because there might be something there we can get, like maybe an arpeggio out of it or something. So let's record that in right here. Let it ring out. All right, and then let's do one more with that really trippy sound. Let's do it. I don't know. There might be something. It's better to have extra sounds than not enough sounds. So let's just get that sound in too. And I want to try one other thing. Maybe like fast picking. You never know until you experiment what you're gonna have. So let's make sure we take off those. We can put on like a cassette sim 303. That should be fine. Oh. See, that might work. I reversed it. Let's go into the sound, because there's a lot of silence at the end, now the start. And then this one. There's a good synth right there. I can hear it. If we could just chop out some of that humbucker noise. So let's go into start end. That should work. Let's get into that envelope. just a little release, which is really attack as it's labeled. Okay, so let's see if we turn on this. Let's start with this one. Okay, last thing I want is, we're not actually using that, so let's delete that. I just want another hi-hat that's doing kind of like a 16 level for the main part. Let's raise that pitch and let's drop the volume. What I like to do when it comes to sampling is build the loop just completely in one spot. Then you can do things like move this and choose just a few things. Like maybe we only here want those guitars, right? That's our intro. Then we can move here and say, okay, for this part, we're gonna want just the kick, that one hi-hat, and the guitars. And then, yeah, okay, everything's gonna, well, more's gonna come in. Here's gonna be the big thing. And then let's say, oh, let's make a duplicate of that where we just don't have that lead. Okay, now we take this one, and here's our B section. We'll put it way up here, so we've got it. The bass, both leads, and all the drums. So then all we got to do is we could pattern chain, or we could just trigger the song to build from there. Start here, go to there. Here comes the drums. And then we can get the next one loaded, and then you just keep building from there. You can add additional parts where you then remove things and do dropouts, what I like to call dropouts, but that's our song. So that's how I like to approach samplers from a guitar perspective. Think about the guitar as a canvas of sound. You can do all kinds of things. You can sample loops, but you can also take one-shots of noises and make very weird, trippy little sounds that maybe you use a little too much and shouldn't use that much, but it's there to just add it once in a while or something. We made this kind of synth. You could even turn that into a polyphonic chord. That's why I love guitar and sampler as a combo. There's so much you can do with it. And of course, we could have just taken this original sample. And that could have worked too, and we could have built it in that same way. I'm a guitarist first and foremost, but samplers have become my main instrument, and I like to think of the guitar as a tool to convey what I'm thinking musically into the sampler, and then the sampler just lets me do so much more with it. Let me know in the comments if you're a guitarist. Do you use a sampler? Have you tried it? What's your workflow? You can use any sampler. They all will work for this type of stuff. So if you want to see my rankings on every sampler I've ever used, check out this video next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.